Okay. So we're good? Ready to go? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. My name's John Moran. I'm with HPE Aruba. Aruba Networks, we're an HPE company. I've been with Aruba Networks 7 years. Excited to be here. And with me is Jason Burgeson, one of the sharpest, smartest channel SEs that I've ever worked with. I don't mean to build him up too much, but this guy's the real deal. So we'll let Jason go through the prezo. I just wanted to welcome you real quickly, and Jason will take you through all the fun stuff. Before we get started, this is a great looking room. Does anybody mind if I take a picture? And when I take this picture, I want everybody hooting and hollering so I can send it back to our folks at corporate so they can see all of what they're missing. So I'm going to do a 1, 2, 3, and then I want hooting and hollering as best you can. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Beautiful. That'll be on Facebook in no time. Anyway, my name is John Moran. I run the distribution channel for Aruba Networks, and I really appreciate you spending time with us this afternoon. My words to you are nothing earth-shattering, but I did want to give D&H a plug for this event and what they're doing with our business. D&H is a great distributor of ours, and if you haven't looked at all the services distribution provides to you today, take a look. Distribution today isn't your daddy's distribution. There are a lot of services and resources that D&H can bring to us collectively as a channel, and they're very important to us. So take a look at the plethora of services that they provide. Again, I run the distribution network for Aruba Networks. We're growing rapidly. You'll hear a lot of cool and exciting topics around solutions that Jason will walk you through. Come down to the booth in the showcase. Talk to us about how we can help your business. And what I'd like to do is hear what's important to you at the showcase so we can help deliver through our distributors those resources that will help make a difference for your business. So we like to win. We like to win the right way. 3 things partners say about Aruba Networks. It's a fast-growing product portfolio, so we're typically a velocity product. Believe it or not, you make money on our products. So it's very important to us that you make margin selling our hardware and software. And third, because we don't do a whole lot from a pro services perspective, we pull more of your pro services than our competitors. So fast growing, margin on the products, and pro services, which we think plays pretty well in the sweet spot of the channel. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jason, let him take it from here. Like I said, this guy's a rock star. You're going to enjoy what you hear. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, John. Hopefully, he didn't build me up just so I can tear myself down in this presentation today. Thank you guys for being here. Awesome, great turnout. Who in the room has heard of Aruba before? And I'm not just referring to the island that you all want to go to today. Awesome. So about half the room. Some of this might be some refresher for you guys. Some of this could be completely brand new. Hopefully you guys leave with something today collectively that you can take and apply to your business from the products that we're going to go over today. And we have a short amount of time, and I know you guys are going to get kind of fire hose with a lot of information, but if you have any questions at all about what we're going to be discussing during this presentation today, come by and see me in the booth. I'd love to have a high level or even deep in the weeds conversation on the technology that we offer. So for those that have never, dealt with Aruba, does anybody in the room know what a WRT54G is? I got some laughs. Awesome. Yeah. So, Linksys router, two antennas sticking out of the back. Everybody had one in some shape, form, or fashion. And when we deployed wireless in the wireless with air quotes in the enterprise, you would essentially stick one of those on the shelf in the back of the, in an office somewhere or in a lounge, and you would pass around a password on a piece of paper, the WEP key, right? And everybody had access to this WEP key on this piece of paper. It was extremely secure. It wasn't secure at all. And if you wanted to deploy another one of those in the building, did they talk to each other? No, they were completely on their own solutions. They didn't integrate. There was no configuration that came, from one to the other. And if you wanted to move from one of those, WRT54Gs to another, you better hope there was enough space between them to actually make that transition. And it supported 54 megabits of data transfer rate What in the world would we do with 54 megabits of wireless throughput? Not a whole lot. That's around the time that Aruba was founded, 2002. So you can start seeing that wireless didn't really scale very well in the enterprise. It was definitely something that was needed from a scalability and a deployment perspective. So we had this idea of a mobility controller and having essentially a manager of all of our access points sharing same configuration, speaking to each other, allowing clients from roaming from one to the other without dropping connectivity, extremely important, and then having a policy defined on all of those devices as your device, your iPhone, your Android phone moves from one to the other. 2007, we went public. And then in 2013, we were recognized as a market leader in NAC, which stands for Network Access Control. We have a product called ClearPass, which is a pretty phenomenal product. We're not going to go deep into that today, but if you have any questions regarding it, come, like I said, see me in the booth. And then in 2015, we joined forces with HPE, and then we became the networking division from a wireless, wired, all the way to the core in the data center perspective for HPE. And then in 2017, Kirti, he's the gentleman that is pictured on the screen. He still leads Aruba today. His vision essentially set forth the idea of a mobile-first architecture, that we are going to have devices in our hand that's going to need connectivity and to be able to provide connectivity to them. So the Intel Centrino was designed, it wasn't very, it wasn't fast, I guess would be the best way to put it. It was a little power hungry. And if I have, any idea of what I would do with it, it probably played solitaire the best more than anything. 2007, does anybody recognize what that device is? An iPhone. You could be all the way in the back of the room and understand that that's an iPhone on the screen. And I waited 13 hours in line for my first iPhone. I am one of those people. I'm okay to admit that. I waited 13 hours in line. 2009, 802.11n was released, allowed us to scale higher, so more density, faster throughput. Definitely beat 802.11g. 2010, that's an Apple iPad. Right? A device that is essentially a mobile design device, all-day battery life, starts entering the enterprise as well. So how do we get that device brought onto the network? 2013, Microsoft Link, or Skype for Business as we know it today. Love it or hate it, we probably all rely on that to do our day-to-day business. Whether you utilize Google Cloud or Azure or any other of the cloud services that are available today, Amazon really did change the idea of this cloud-first solution for our data. And then 802.11ax. Wi-Fi 6, as we now know it, is the next evolution of wireless. And it really is just like Intel Centrino, the mind shift of how do we manage all these wireless devices. No other wireless technology is going to change Wi-Fi as we know it today like AX. It's really going to change how we utilize wireless from an infrastructure standpoint. It's pretty awesome technology. And I like throwing this slide up on the screen. Is anybody an airhead in this room? Yeah, everybody's a little hesitant to say, hey, I'm an airhead. Well, I'm an airhead. It's also not the flavors of candy that you can purchase on a regular basis. But Airheads is a community of like-minded technical people where you can go on if you have any issues you're trying to work out. You can go on there and post a question and get responses from 75,000 people. And it's not a replacement for TAC. We definitely believe in TAC and calling up a support number. But sometimes it's really good to get 75,000 other eyes on your problem and to get solutions provided to you through a community basis. It's pretty awesome. So can anybody in the room tell me a vertical that they could think of that doesn't rely on wireless today, with the exception of the Star Wars screenplay writers that are air-gapped? Coin, but you could go to a coin laundromat and get wireless while you're waiting for your laundry.
Some still don't have it.
That is true. That is true. Pretty crazy. Yeah, wireless is a necessity these days. And it's a necessity whether you require it for your business needs or you need it to provide a better customer solution. It's something that we have to utilize. And we see things are changing. So from Mobile workers, 70% of workers today are mobile. They're not necessarily in an office building or sharing a cubicle. They're mobile. $127 billion in cloud spending. We see some big. There are more IoT devices on this planet today than there are people on this earth. It's remarkable. All of those devices have an IP address. They have a computer. They have access, some of them, to the outside world. It's pretty crazy. That number is expected to go up to 13 billion by the end of this year. Nuts. And being able to manage those devices, getting them onto the network securely in a way that you don't have to worry about your infrastructure being vulnerable, right? Having these light switches that may never get a firmware update, or these light bulbs, or these robotic vacuum cleaners that probably won't get a firmware update. How do I actually get that device onto my network in a way that won't affect the rest of my network that I need to do my business on? And here's an overview of our portfolio. Some of it overall is a way to manage our access points in the cloud from a site, multi-site, or multi-customer perspective. So if you're an MSP or managed service provider in the room, Central would be the platform of choice to look into, because you can manage all of your customers from that single pane of glass experience that everybody's looking for. So Aruba Instant. The benefit is you don't have to, just like I said, that those WRT54Gs, if you plug that in and you configure it, you don't want to have to plug another one in and configure that one separately. You want to have configuration from one place, right? So Instant allows you to do that. And the way Instant works is you configure the first access point, you give it your wireless network, the roles, the passwords, all that stuff that you need to configure your wireless network. I've been in fairly large office buildings that don't even have half that number providing adequate coverage. Can anybody think of deployments, that you've done that may have utilized more than 128? We're thinking that size, like, maybe schools, certain schools, colleges, that kind of thing. That's 128 access points for one location is a lot. 2,000 concurrent wireless clients per cluster. 2,000 clients is a lot, 16 SSIDs in total. The really cool thing about Instant, though, is from a management perspective, it makes it really easy, because from a redundancy standpoint, if the main one goes down that you configured, the next one in line would essentially pick up its duties. So you have redundancy built right into it. But from a management perspective, your IP address that you go to for management doesn't change. And we utilize what we call a virtual IP address that is shared by the cluster. And if one goes down, another one picks up its slack. You just connect to the same IP address that you've always connected to, and you've never noticed a difference, right? Pretty cool. The other benefit is the hardware. And built-in security, we have a layer 7 firewalls. We're going to dive a little bit deeper in just a second on the layer 7 firewalls we have built in. And the resiliency, like I said, it's redundant in its way that if one goes down, the other one picks up the slack. Now, wireless is affected by pretty much everything that's in the air that you physically can't see. Now, you guys are hearing me have a presentation for you guys. You guys are all receiving what I'm saying. But if someone was having a conversation with another person in this room right now, depending on where they are in this room, that group of people in the room will have a hard time hearing what I'm saying because there's another conversation going on. I don't have any control over that conversation, but it's affecting the people around them. They can't hear what I'm saying. So I might have to say the same thing 3 or 4 times for that group of people to hear the full message. So they might get the first time, the first bit of the message the first time, they might get the middle the second time, and the end of what I'm saying at the very end. But ultimately, they have to take 3 times the amount of time to hear what I have to say because that conversation is going on. It takes them 3 times longer, right? Because they can't hear what I'm saying. And that's why having something inside our access points that scans the air, the RF, radio frequency spectrum, to make sure that the channel that the radio is broadcasting on and the power of that access point is suitable for the environment that it's in. It's dynamic. Now, if I can say the same thing to everybody in this room once, that's ideal. And that's what this looks to achieve, is to have that conversation 1 time instead of 3 times. So your performance on your wireless network is significantly improved. Because unlike a cable where I can replace it, I don't have the ability of seeing or necessarily hearing on a 24/7 basis. The radio is always listening. Application visibility. You could say, I see John Smith is connected to the access point in the courtyard, and they happen to be watching YouTube at 11 a.m. Well, why is John Smith in the courtyard at 11 a.m. watching YouTube? Well, John Smith likes cat videos. He's watching cat videos in the courtyard. But John Smith is supposed to be at his desk doing work, right? So you can take a look at those things. Then you can also say, well, I don't really want to give YouTube a very high priority. I don't want to consume a lot of my network traffic. So you can actually provide a lower priority for YouTube so it doesn't consume a lot of throughput. You can actually put a threshold of where you want it to cap out at. You can say YouTube only gets 128K, which is enough to load the web page, but not enough to stream video. So John Smith can't watch his cat videos. The client determines when it goes from one access point to the other, and generally they don't want to transition. They want to stay on that access point, because if they want to go to another one, they have to actually change channels. And sometimes I might be sitting on the couch at home, and the controller that changes the TV channels is sitting right there on the coffee table, but I will continue watching something I don't want to watch just because I don't want to lean over and grab the remote on the coffee table. And the phone and your tablets are the same way. They would rather stay on a channel that might not be as good, right? Less signal, less speed, just so they don't have to change the channel to move to another access point. But the problem is that client isn't going to be fast, right? So you want to make sure that you have the best connection to each of your clients so they don't consume as much time in transmitting. And Client Match helps solve that problem. It'll help kind of negotiate with that client, kind of persuade it to move to another access point that's better and closer. Okay? So if you only want to manage it on premise but not in the cloud, then there is no licensing. So you get all that same feature set that we just talked about, adaptive radio management, App RF, which is our layer 7 firewall, and Client Match are built into our access points. And those are the biggest differences between them, is going to be the overall speed the radios to produce and how many clients can connect to them. Yeah, so the number of max concurrent clients is actually the same across the board. So there's no difference in that because essentially it's just a MAC table. But depending on which one you would deploy, it would depend on how much speed each one would get. And wireless is really a two-way conversation. So it really depends on what the device is that's connecting to the wireless access point in order for you to determine how much speed each device would get. So me having I'm going to go back to that same example. Me having a conversation with you guys in this room, you guys are able to receive what I'm saying pretty quickly and understand what I'm saying. But if I was talking to the same, doing the same presentation to my 5-year-old, it would take quite a bit more time for her to comprehend what I'm saying, right? So not to say my 5-year-old is a 802.11b device and you guys are AC, but that's essentially the way it works.
So if you manage them locally without going cloud-based, what do you attach into the IP of the cluster that gets built? Or?
For management?
Yeah, you said you could do it no additional licensing if you manage it locally.
Yeah.
On-prem. What do you connect to?
So one of these APs is essentially the master, yep, and that's the virtual IP address that you would connect to. If that master goes down, another one would pick up its slack, but since it's a virtual IP across the whole cluster, it's still the same address that you're connecting to. Yep. So Aruba Central, and it's very easy to look at. I know you guys can't probably see it on the screen, but if you're interested in taking a look at it when you come to the booth today, I can throw it up on my laptop for you guys to see it, and you guys can poke around for it. But it provides a lot of information from the get-go, whether you're viewing it at the 30,000 most view, where you're looking at all your customers at one time, or you want to dive into a per-site location to get information on client connectivity and what's being transmitted on your network from a throughput perspective. So if you want to take advantage of things like Facebook Wi-Fi, or LinkedIn, or those kind of things, or payments, then guest Wi-Fi would be an additional service. The what's built in would just be captive portal, I agree to these terms, and go forward. Presence analytics is a way for us to determine how long a device is essentially in a store. So devices are sending off information called beacons. The access point can hear those beacons. So if I have an access point in the front of my retail store, if I walk by that retail store, it's going to hear the beacon of that device, and it will say, I heard this beacon once or maybe twice. And I can start gauging analytics on that time frame. But if I walk into that store, other access points in the store will start hearing that same beacon. So I can say, well, this device moved through the store this way, and I heard it for this long, and I can start gauging my analytics off of that, of how long someone stays in my store. Now, I don't know who that person is or what that person does or any of that kind of stuff. There's no actual information tying that device to a specific person, but I can get an idea, depending on how dense my deployment is inside that store, where they're moving, how long they stayed, those kind of things. And then connectivity analytics is essentially a way of gauging my network from a 0 to 100 score on how well it's performing, and then provide insight on how to resolve any issues that you might be having. If things aren't, devices aren't getting IP addresses, maybe it's not getting a handshake with a pre-shared key or something like that, that would provide some insight. So if you guys ever pull up your phone and you try to connect to a Wi-Fi network, you see all your Wi-Fi networks kind of trickle in, that's because it's listening to all the beacons. So it doesn't require any connectivity, which is why we can't tie that device to a specific person. It doesn't require connectivity. So you're getting this information essentially, without the user having to do anything.
Are you guys doing both Wi-Fi and Bluetooth?
We do Bluetooth as well. We have a platform called Meridian that will handle Bluetooth beacon for location.
Don't have the Bluetooth radio?
All of our APs, 300 series and up, have Bluetooth beacons built into them.
Oh,
Yeah.
You would need the back end.
Yeah. So you would need we have a different product called Meridian, like I said, that's a little tiny device that you'd use in conjunction with the beacons built into the access point. Yeah, great questions. And the benefits of the cloud, we've talked about a little bit with AWS, right? Right? We want to limit Pandora because if a call comes in over Skype, you don't want someone having degraded performance on Skype because someone else is watching Pandora. It's pretty awesome. Things like web reputation and web content categories are built into Aruba Central. If you want to block explicit websites, you don't have to know every single explicit website known to man. It's just one category, one rule, that you put into the SSID, and then it blocks all explicit websites. So you could see and play around with what might be the best placement for this access point, which access point might be the best one. So you upload a floor plan and you draw your walls in, and you give it the information that it's needed, and then you can provide the coverage. Pretty cool. And it's colorful, and I like colorful things. Oh, yeah. And that's it I have for you guys. Yeah.
I was wondering, with the advent of 5G on cell phones, what is that dictate for Wi-Fi? You see 5G replacing Wi-Fi?
Yeah, so here's the problem with 5G is no one can give me a solid answer of what they mean by 5G these days. I mean, it's absolutely crazy when we think about it because every single vendor or manufacturer or solutions provider has a different definition for 5G. What I base it off of is just another way to connect to the internet, right? So, if I don't have an ISP in my area that provides a fast enough connection to the outside world, I may be able to leverage 5G to provide either a secondary uplink or primary if it's the only method that I have. But internally, I want to own my network, right? I want to be able to say YouTube traffic gets this amount of data being sent across. And I don't know about you guys, but with net neutrality being dead, I don't know if these providers providing 5G to me are going to be able to do that, right? So having the full control from a wireless Wi-Fi perspective is going to be essential from here on out. I want to be able to have full control. So 5G I may be able to leverage, to connect to the internet, but to have a basis inside my, small medium business or mid-market or enterprise, I don't think it's really going to be suitable for that. Wi-Fi is still going to reign king, and it's going to offer the fastest data transfer rates. Now, we've benefited from 5G from a technology perspective because AX adopts a lot of that. But 5G I think is just going to be a way to connect to the outside world. Yes, sir.
On your slide before this, you had a heat map up.
Yeah.
An office, and the APs are spread around. Just a fast question, observing the diagram. You have an AP for about 9 people in that diagram. If I look at that office, do you consider that a realistic example, or is that just a mock-up that we shouldn't pay attention to that?
An AP, a diagram for 9 people?
What I'm saying is, in the diagram that's up on the screen right now,
Yeah.
you're showing an AP covering roughly 9 cubicle workstations.
Okay.
And I'm
No, so this is definitely a valid solution. So here's the thing. It really depends on what you're utilizing your wireless for. So what do your users, or from an IT perspective, customers need, right? So in this scenario, we tend to think about devices being 1-to-3 ratio. So every one person has about 3 devices. That's expanding. Even on me right now, I have a phone and a watch. In my bag, I have my MacBook Pro. I have an iPad. I'm adding more devices on a regular basis. Pretty soon I'm going to have a chain with a wireless radio on the inside of it or something. But if we take a look at how many devices my users have or what they're using it for, the more requirements are going to allot more access points in that space. If we have one access point and it's not really mandatory for them to conduct business on wireless, it's possible I can get away with half that from a coverage standpoint. But if I need higher client density, let's say all my workers have wireless connectivity to all their laptops and that's how they work business, well, then this would be definitely valid. Right? Does that answer the question?
It does.
Awesome. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Overcoming the security aspect of the wireless networks from hacks and such, without using virtual private network, for example, what mechanics do you have in terms of robust security in your code many times?
So I'm not going to try to get long-winded on this because security is near and dear to my heart. But Aruba actually has developed a technology called WPA3. Anybody familiar with WPA2? Yeah, that's generally essentially the security that every wireless architecture uses today. Well, WPA3 was invented because WPA2 was cracked. In fact, it was cracked by a vulnerability called crack with the letter K. And since it was cracked, and all the vendors released firmware updates, so things have been somewhat resolved, but it was cracked once, it's going to crack again, right? So WPA3 is essentially homegrown within Aruba, and it has now been certified by the Wi-Fi Alliance, and it is a standard beyond, just like WPA2 was. And WPA3 offers better encryption. It's a lot more secure. Essentially can't be cracked, whether it's the letter C or the letter K. But what WPA3 offers from an Aruba standpoint is something we call enhanced open, so Wi-Fi enhanced open. Generally, security is only an issue on open networks. If you connect to an open network that doesn't require a password, there is no security between your device and the wireless device you're connecting to. So anybody can kind of sniff that traffic between, which is not secure, which is why everybody says don't do banking information at the airport. Enhanced open allows us to encrypt the signal on an open network from point A to point B. So, and that actually not only is on our newer 510 series access points, but we've actually retroactively added that to our 300 and up series access points as well. I know we're getting close on time, so any other questions? That's awesome. You guys have great questions. Like I said, I'll be at the booth, essentially directly after this. I'm going straight there now. If you have any other questions, please don't hesitate and come and see me. I'd be glad to answer anything you guys have. All right? Thank you, guys. I appreciate y'all for coming.